One of the biggest debates going on in the country during the pandemic has to do with the reopening of schools. In June, grade 7s and 12s went back to school with other grades starting in the weeks that followed. However, the president announced that from the 27th of July, all public schools will close for 4 weeks as the country faces a surge in coronavirus cases. He also noted that grade 7s and grade 12s will return at an earlier date and that the 2020 academic year will extend into 2021. Talking to us today about this is Minister of Education in the Western Cape, Debbie Schafer. Minister Schafer practiced as an attorney of the Cape High Court for 12 years before starting her political career as a city councillor. She became a Member of Parliament in 2009, and in 2014 she was sworn in as Minister of Education in the Western Cape. So welcome to the show, Minister Schafer. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well, thank you. And you?
I'm great. And now we've got some questions from young reporters for you this morning. And Talita follows on by asking and suggesting why, for example, can't the government cancel the school year for all the grades except perhaps grade 12s so that the other pupils could be moved to the next grade?
Because, first of all, we don't know how long the virus is going to be with us. So we might do that and then find at the beginning of the year the virus is still around and then people want another year. And as I've said, the education gaps are getting so much bigger. And the schools that are particularly in poorer communities don't have access to things like e-learning and so on, and whereas the wealthier schools do. So people in those schools will continue to get further and further ahead of those who don't have, which is exactly what we do not want. We want to bring up the standard for everybody. And as I said earlier, it's got a huge impact. There was a study that was done in the US, which I think would probably be worse in South Africa, that said that 4 months of school closure will have an effect on the economy of $2.5 trillion US. That's just 4 months. So it's an economic effect, it's an effect on the learner's future earning capacity and on their ability to carry on learning in the higher grades. It's not as simple as doing that. It's really has got a huge impact on people.
It sounds like definitely going to have a massive impact if something like that was done. The next question now comes from Emily, and she asks, why are the public and private schools subject to different rules, and how will this affect students moving between the two next year when the public school year has been extended into 2021?
Yeah, I mean, public schools and private schools obviously are different because they are different. People want to send their children to private schools because they're different to government schools, and that's really the reason why they are treated differently. Because very often people pay a lot of money to go to those schools, and they are able to comply with the requirements that are necessary for the safety protocols. So yes, I suppose if somebody were to go to a private school from a public school, then that would affect them, and vice versa. The public schools would probably be slightly further behind than the private schools that were continuing. But that is the difference, that people choose to send their children to private schools because they are different to government.
And now a question here from Yusra, who's in grade 7, asks and says that she's concerned about high school and what will happen to students going from grade 7 into grade 8 next year.
Yeah, I can understand that. But also, luckily, grade 7s are coming back also quite soon after the matrics. So what's happened with all the other grades except for the matrics is that the curriculum has been cut down a little bit to try and ensure that we can get the basic crucial concepts that they need to be able to move forward in place. So we're making the best that we can of it, but obviously that will be taken into account in high school. And if necessary, there might have to be some catch-up plans later next year. We haven't really discussed that yet, but obviously everyone's in the same boat. So schools will just have to take into account that people haven't had a normal academic year this year, so she mustn't worry.
Minister Schafer, thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been great having you on to shed some light on the whole school situation at the moment.
Thank you very much. It's been good to be with you.
You are listening to RX Radio.
For and by children.
RX Radio. RX Radio rocks.